It is Tuesday. Welcome, all of my good friends, to Heirloom Afternoon. It is Tuesday, and that means it's time for Heirloom Afternoon. How are you doing today? I am Cheryl Muppin Whited. You can call me Muppin. And today we have some pretty cool stuff for you today. It is going to be a lot of fun. I can tell you that we are freezing in this building, but it is a beautiful day out today. 55 degrees today in beautiful, historic downtown Paducah, Kentucky. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun. It is been a wild week here in Kentucky. We have been so busy, and we're in the middle of trying to find all of our Christmas decorations because we have no idea where any of them are. Today, my friends, I did want to show you some of the results from last week's video. And we have some new vintage items for you to go out and look for to add to your sewing table. I'm so excited. Also, I found a vintage linen in my collection that I had thought was something else. All this time, I quite literally thought this was a different thing. So, let's just dive in and talk about it. Today, don't forget, we have all of our sewing tools and fun stuff over at shop.muppin.com. And as always, that helps us have a Merry Christmas. If there's something that you have yet to pick up for someone, we are coming up close to getting it in time for Christmas. So if you are looking to pick something up, or perhaps you are shopping for yourself, I do that all the time myself. All right, so let me just move a couple things out the way here. Move these new to you, I'm sure, items. All right, so last week we talked about dyeing vintage linens with paint. And here are those results that we did last week. So these were the samples of a this was a vintage hanky that basically it was very worn. It's super thin, and this was one that I had painted some time ago. But here are the results of the uh painted. Look at that. Oh my gosh, these are backwards. Hang on, what is up with this? There we go. Why was that backwards? I don't, this computer sometimes it has a mind of its own. Okay, so remember we painted this, then we let it completely dry, and then you do need to set these paints with heat. So give it a good press with your iron, and that will permanently set all of these colors. Remember the piece of trim that we did, and this needs a good pressing. And but look at how cool that came out. This would be very cool on a pillowcase or around the edge of something awesome. So, again, we have taken this piece of trim and painted it with paint. And then you remember our half a doily, the doily that had a lot of damage here in the middle, and we only painted half. And so you can see what the original looked like, and then here is the finished piece. So again, if you you have to press this with your iron in order to set these paints to make them permanent. And then we did have that last napkin that had the stains on it. Remember, it's got stains on it, but now you can't even tell. There's just so much cool, uh, blobs of paint on here so that it just hides all everything. And you know what? Now you can use this with your I mean, hey, you could even put some of this trim on here, and really decorate it up. So I just think that that would be, really, really neat to use your vintage linens that have a little bit of damage, a little bit of, you know, I just think these turned out really, really well. So for those of you that missed that last week, go ahead and check out that video from last week. I'm really excited about how much you guys loved that. So I was hunting for a vintage linen in my collection that was from a my great aunt, and my great aunt, she was very crafty. She was a very crafty lady, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I have a panel that's very Christmassy, and I need to go dig that panel out. Well, here is said panel. And I just saw like the edge of this sticking out of the box. So, and I was like, oh yeah, country Christmas. This is exactly what I thought it was. But then it's not what I thought it was. It's an apron. And can I tell you, in my mind, this was not an apron. In my mind, this was a tree skirt. So now that I've found it, I'm like, oh, it is not what I thought it was. It's got like little farms. Look at these cows, little horses. You got the sleigh ride. You've got people with sleigh rides, these houses, and then, of course, this panel across the bottom. And, in my mind, this was not, this was a tree skirt, not an apron. So I'm like rather disappointed to find it now. And I'm like, oh, wait, you were not supposed to be this. So now I am wondering how I will convert it. Okay, so this is how old it is. Great Aunt Beck, she would keep everything. But this is from 1992. It to me, it feels older, right? It does not look like it's from 1992. It looks like it feels like it's from the 70s. But you can see here this bottom panel. This strip here just goes across the bottom, becomes like a pocket. But now I'm like, how can I convert this to being a tree skirt? Because I really want it as a tree skirt now. In my mind, this was not all this time. I was like, oh yeah, I've got that tree skirt panel. I should dig that out. And I dig it out, and it's not a tree skirt, it's actually an apron. I do like these styles of panel aprons. I've made several of them. They do still sell some things like this at Joann's and Hobby Lobby occasionally. So if you do see them, they're great little things to pick up because they make great gifts. You can stick them in your stash, and if you need a quick gift, something like this is really super handy. So in that same box was this, and this is huge. And it looks like it is for pillows. They're Dresden pillow. Uh, they're just big, giant Dresden plate pillow patterns. Now, I don't know what you think. Tell me what you think. Do you like this pattern? It's like a gray and like rose color. So it's like gray here. And it's on a cream background, which I would not normally put these two together. I would probably put it on a white. It would pop more. But yeah, there you go. So I don't know how many of these panels that I have, but I have there's dozens. There's yards and yards of these. And there's like two per piece. Um And so there's directions on here on how to make them into a pillow. This is pretty wild. So from a vintage pillow pattern, it's pretty cool. I don't know that I need to keep all of these, so you never know where these may end up because I have so many of them. But it looks like she took like the whole the whole of the yardage. So they're called Dresden plate pillows. There's no date on the selvage, so we don't know when they were made. But they were probably in this box with they're in the same box as the apron, so I'm gonna say they're probably the same age, like 1990s. So good old grandma. Well, great aunt. She was like a grandma to us. Okay. I don't know if you're ready for this next thing because this is a vintage just a vintage item that I feel has a really it becomes really really useful in your sewing room. I have one on my sewing table. Um Pretty much everywhere that I do sew, I have one of these. And you're probably like you've seen them, but not quite as probably often as they're a little harder to find now. I think when my great aunt was collecting these, she was able to find them more often. Okay, so let's talk about what they are. They are small porcelain dishes. And here is an example of one. They usually come with like two pieces. They have like a top and a bottom. They're not necessarily like this blueware like this one is. You can find them in all different shapes and sizes. They're very very common, and pretty much everyone from like the late 1800s to I want to say about the 1930s had these on their vanity. Okay, these are a vanity type item. And let's just talk about this one because this is usually, they're round, they have a hole in the top, and and the top comes off. Okay, so what is it? It is a what's called a hair receiver. A hair receiver. Now, it is exactly what it's named after, right? You would brush your hair and you would take the hair out of the brush and you would put it in here. And I know how gross that sounds. But you have to remember that they had these big hairstyles that would needed to be padded out, and the best way to do that would be padded out with your own like a ball of your own hair. Now there were many other uses for hair in the 1800s, and even people would make like hair jewelry and other gross stuff. So I know that you're probably like, this sounds absolutely disgusting, and I wouldn't ever want to collect any of these. My great aunt collected these, and I have hundreds and hundreds of them from her collection. And I think this collection's really interesting. So we're going to talk about what so first of all, These have been in storage, so they're really filthy. There's no hair in them anymore. All right. So here's one. So what she did is she literally kept everything with the hair receiver. So she wrote hair receiver, $16. Kiwanis Antique Show, 1976 in Geneseo, New York, which is where she was from. This one here is from Germany, and it is made before 1900. So she also had written on little stickers, she would redraw the little mark, and these little numbers here, I am not even kidding, every single one of these has a typed card to go with it. So there's a catalog that she made of every single one of her hair receivers. And as you can see, this one is number 84, meaning there were hundreds and hundreds that she collected. And so, you can see that she redrew the mark. She was very prolific on this. Like, this was how she kept her little collection. Now, some of these are they were part of sets that would be part of your vanity, right? And so you might also find them with a tray and another box that was covered, that did not have a hole. And if you found those together, those would be this, those are can be pretty expensive, but on their own, a good hair receiver, might cost you like 15 between 15 and $20. So if you find your hair receiver, now again, like a hair receiver, right? It's gross. Just give it a wash and it'll be fine. But these are what you would do is, again, and so what do I do with my hair receiver? Well, I take these little, scraps of thread, and I just put them in there so that they are all together. So you can use your hair receiver to collect your spare threads as you're hand sewing, or as you're sewing at your machine. You can keep one of these next to your machine, and you can just keep depositing the threads into your hair receiver. Now, I am not kidding when I say there are so many designs. And this one is one of my favorites. It's made in Japan. And like I said, my great aunt, she kept everything. She kept everything. Um, so so Lincoln Ladies Auxiliary Flea Market on April 25th, 1980. She was marked $8, but she gave me $3 change out of 20. Um that's this seems wrong, but okay. So she got this for $7. There's a beautiful little mark on the bottom. Look at this paint. It looks like it's a transfer. Okay, so it's like a transfer wear, but look at how pretty this is with the little hole. So if you're always out and you're looking at these little dishes, you're seeing these little trinkets, again, my great aunt always kept her little receipt in there. But I would, this is where you would take your little scrap threads and you just tuck them down in there. And in a way, this is now a thread receiver instead of a hair receiver. And this is, again, for when we open here at the Sewing Emporium here in Paducah, we do plan to have a selection of these. for you to get. So that is one of the things that we're planning. So again, you don't need to use it for your hair. You use it for your thread, and you just, as you are sewing, you just take your little thread and just tuck it down in there, and it collects your thread or your little snippets from like corners or things that you trim off. You've got that. So hair receivers. This is a very old thing that would be at your on your vanity. Your vanity would have, you know, a hair receiver, also a completely covered one that didn't have a hole, and that would be your powder with your powder puff inside. And sometimes there was a tray. You would have a tray that like a porcelain tray that would all sit on. Now there were some elaborate sets, and you can get elaborate sets of these, but I find more often than not the hair receiver on its own. And yeah, you just stick your little threads down in there instead of you don't need to, you can throw away your hair out of your brush. You don't need to save it like they did in the 1800s. Now you have to remember they had elaborate hairstyles, right? These these like big bouffant hairstyles. You have hair like I do, right? You don't have a lot of hair there to fill that out. And they didn't have a lot of chemicals. It's not like they had, you know, chemical hairspray to keep all that together. So what they would use is they would use their own hair to fill out some of these elaborate hairstyles. Well, where are you going to get that from? And it means you've got to collect it for some time. And that's where the hair receiver comes in. Now, these are pretty small. You can see here on my table, it's only about 3.5 inches or 4 inches in size. So it's a fairly small item. And again, most of your antique stores, places, they're going to have stuff like this. Here's, I mean, just the various shapes that they could come in. A lot of times they would be, I know that this one is marked Germany, but this is what they call transferware. And what they would do is they would take these flower transfers. You can see how just crudely cut they are. They really didn't even take a whole lot of time, you know, to cut out the specific flowers or anything. They didn't care if it got on the foot here. Um, and then they came back in with a little gold paint to make it look a little frou-frou. But yeah, so you can see that they've like just really just crudely just cut a transfer, plastered it on there. Same thing with the top. So you can find some that are hand painted and like really, really elaborate and really, really beautiful. And again, most of these were made prior to 1900. Now, I do have a few in Great Aunt Beck's collection that were made with Bakelite, which is an early form of plastic. Those were like 1910 and 1920. So people did collect their grody hair and put it in these in order to, you know, again, have those elaborate Gibson girl hairstyles and stuff like that. Again, hair was used all through you know, you could put it in your garden to keep pests away. You could do all sorts of things. You know, now what they do at the hairdresser, right? So when you're at the hairdresser and they sweep up all the hair, some of them are collecting that hair for what are called oil nets. And what the hair is collected into is just big, giant almost like mesh bags, and then they're floated on the ocean to collect oil spills, because your hair, as your hair gets oily, you know that it attracts oils. And so they use the hair in order to collect oil off of the surface of the ocean. And so there's lots of positive uses. I'm not going going to discount the fact that this is kind of, you know, you got to get over that. But the fact is you can wash these, clean them up real nice, and then you can take your threads and just use them to collect and empty out your threads. So, if you have a little as you're sewing and you have thread that you're ready to throw away, because trust me, they will sell you more thread. You don't need to sew down to the little nub anymore. You just take that and stick it in your little hair receiver. So for those of you that are always like in the antique stores and you're like looking for something new, hair receivers are my jam. Now, like I said, these are from Great Aunt Beck's collection, and we will have some of the hair receivers that I've collected on in the shop when we do open, which I don't really have an opening date per se. I have like a target in my mind. We'll see if we get there. I am working very hard in order for us to get to that point. But these hair receivers, they are pretty easy to find. You may not find them with receipts inside of where Great Aunt Beck collected it. She was very serious about her collection, and she, like I was saying earlier, she even marked every single one of them with a number, and there is a catalog that I own with her number on it, and there's a corresponding card for each and every one of these with where she bought it, how much she paid for it, what she likes about it, what she doesn't like about it. I mean, she was very detailed and very and cared about this collection. And me, I have certain pieces that I love more than the others, right? Like this is one of the few that I'm like absolutely in love with. And I love that she has the little notes inside of them of where she bought them. This was bought in 1980. 1980. So, I mean, not just that this is old on its own. Great Aunt Beck got this, gosh, 42 years ago. I feel so old. No, it's 30 to 90, 10, 0, 90, zeros, 10. Yeah. 20, no, it is 40. Woo, I'm feeling old. So yeah, she bought this in 1980. And now I own it. But these are the things that I keep. Like I said, I'll have my little sewing station, and as I'm pulling threads off of, I'll just stick them in there, and that's how I use them. And they are not at all how they were intended to be used, but that's how they'll be used here from now on. So if you're a collector like I am, you might want to start looking for hair receivers. Now, this is not the only thing that I use vintage wise in my home and in my sewing studio. We have covered a lot of these over the years. And I think that, again, you can find as many of these vintage things, and whether or not you are looking for something while you're antiquing or whatever, this is just one of those things that I like to find and bring out and use, right? Because these things were meant to be used. And so taking the hair receiver part aside, these new to me little thread receivers, you can start collecting those on your sewing table. My friends, it is time for me to go, but I will see all of you next week. We are planning all kinds of things over here. Um, Now, next week will be the last heirloom afternoon for the year, and we will start back up after the beginning of 2023. And we have so many cool techniques planned to show you in the next few months. I mean, we have so much planned. So I know you're going to want to stick around for that. We also are planning our heirloom sewing technique of the month box is returning in 2023. So I know you're very excited about that as well. Don't forget to go to shop.muffin.com. There it goes, there it goes, there it goes. And we are hoping to get all of the old stock blown out so that we can bring in some new cool stuff for you and also open the shop fairly soon. So I'm gonna go. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you on the other side. Take care. Bye bye.